Welcome to the Cybersecurity Whisperer for the last week of October. It's incredible. It's the last week of Cybersecurity Awareness Month. It's Halloween, and it's also in the United States. Next week is the presidential elections. So lots going on. We'll start off with Meta. Meta is testing facial recognition to curb deepfake scams, and so they're rolling out this technology on their social media platforms to spot scam ads featuring celebrity deepfakes. So the feature will also aim to verify the identity of users that are locked out of their Facebook or Instagram accounts by having them take selfie videos and comparing them with their profile pictures. So these celebrity bait ads, they're really deepfake scams that use AI-generated images of popular personalities to trick users into giving away their money. And so Meta plans to use facial recognition to compare the pictures in the scam ads with the celebrities' profile pictures to confirm that that's actually who they are. So far, only a small group of celebrities are enrolled in the program, but it has announced changes to how it labels content it suspects of being generated by AI in July, and it will now display an AI info label for the content. And so far, Meta said they've took down 8,000 of the celebrity bait scam ads from the social media platforms after receiving 102 reports since April. The company will not deploy the feature in the European Union and the United Kingdom because that would violate their local data collection laws. So, interesting use of AI to combat AI, which we knew would be needed. Here's something else. The embargo ransomware is disabling security defenses. So this is this is some sort of new, well-resourced ransomware player. They're developing and testing tools to disable security defenses, including a method that exploits a vulnerability in drivers to bypass protection systems. So researchers at ESET, they uncovered this malware linked to the deployment of Embargo ransomware, which uses a custom loader and an endpoint detection killer. Embargo first surfaced in April, and an ongoing shakeup in the ransomware world propelled by law enforcement crackdowns and the unexpected exit of Black Cat. The group claims 10 victims on its dark web leak site, including an Australian non-bank lender, South Carolina Police Department, Idaho Community Hospital. And in June, they had an interview with a self-proclaimed embargo representative that said the group works on the ransomware as a service model, with the affiliate keeping up to 80% of the extortion payments. And so the toolkit that was found by ESET, it's got two components. It's got mDeployer, which is a loader designed to deploy the embargo's ransomware and other payloads, and then MS4 Killer, which is an EDR killer. It actually disables your endpoint detection response systems by exploiting vulnerable drivers. And the software is written in Rust. And the language's memory safety features and the low-level capabilities make it effective for creating this efficient and resilient malware. They said that Rust allows Embargo to target both Windows and Linux operating systems, and once it's on a compromised system, the mDeployer tool will decrypt and execute the MS4 Killer payload, followed by the Embargo ransomware. And one technique that the deployer uses is rebooting infected computers into safe mode, which then is it's a minimally functional operating system that has most cybersecurity protections disabled. The versions, as with most malware, it varies in each intrusion slightly, and so they are actively developing and refining its toolkit. In fact, in one case, the researchers found two versions of the mDeployer in a single intrusion, suggesting the attackers tweaked it after the first attempt failed. MS4 Killer is designed, to disable security products by leveraging a bring-your-own vulnerable driver technique. It was likely inspired by a proof-of-concept tool named S4 Killer, but the embargo enhanced its functionality to make it more effective in real-world attacks. Again, the tool runs in an endless loop, scanning for security processes to terminate and using multiple threads for real efficient execution. For all of you that have electric vehicles, I think you've known that. Again, anything that's IoT, anything that's Internet of Things that's connected to the Internet is going to be vulnerable from hacks. And so the electric vehicle charging stations certainly continue to be a target for that. As the demand for electric vehicles rises, the number of charging stations in cities along highways is again projected to climb. But of course, along with this convenience, these digital roadside pit stops, they pose for new cybersecurity risks. Researchers have found that multiple brands of EV charging stations have exploitable vulnerabilities due to manufacturers often leaving open and unsecured SSH and HTTP ports. The risks range from an expanded attack surface to a launching pad for assaults on the power grid. They warned about these vulnerabilities at a Hardware I/O conference this past week, and they found that they worked with manufacturers from all over the world to test the techniques for charging electric cars, trucks, buses, and other things. And the basic security challenge is that when an electric vehicle plugs into a charging station, the car and the charging station communicate with each other. And when they connect, your electric vehicle, and the charging station, they communicate over that network connection, which is the actual power line of the charging cable. And so, typically the modem responsible for this communication, it's accessible in Linux as a regular network interface. And because of this, misconfiguration of the services on the charging station controller might cause these services to be exposed on the charging cable. All fast or EV charging stations, they use power line communication, or PLC, to constantly communicate with the charging cable throughout the recharging or discharging process, which shares payment, configuration, and power management details. And so, again, it wasn't taken into consideration. These charging companies that are building these chargers, they're not building security into them. They're just trying to get them produced and out the door quickly, as we've seen with other technologies. And they need to put security first on those. It's going to have massive implications. Speaking of poor security practices, we continue chatting about banks and the poor security practices at banks that put them at risk. Despite heavy security investments, banks still struggle with basic security issues. I've talked about this over and over, and I know people get tired of hearing it, but it's back to the basics. We get distracted by all these blinky, shiny objects of AI and all these other things, and we're not focusing on the basics, such as default passwords, vendor vulnerabilities, and social engineering scams. Even large banks that have built strong defenses, they really grapple with these common risks. There was a report that was released this last week that surveyed 350 regional and community banks, and 26% of banks still use blank or default passwords. I mean, that's unreal. Unpatched systems and even lack of segmented networks at even some of the larger banks. And so, yes, password management is challenging, and it is exacerbated by the complex IT ecosystems that banks rely on. And when you work with multiple vendors and you integrate a wide range of systems, this can lead to operational inefficiencies that hinder this password enforcement. They've seen cases where retail security equipment was used, which is not built for enterprise purposes. And if these devices are visible on your network, hackers are going to exploit them. I mean, we go back to the breach at a casino that was done through the fish tank. You'd think that was not properly segmented. To address this, again, robust password managers, strengthening the oversight of third-party systems. The report also found 33% of banks remaining vulnerable, again, to social engineering scams, of course, particularly phishing. And again, traditional tools and controls, they can't prevent social engineering scams. So it's, again, important to invest in continuous and comprehensive security awareness training, really to help employees recognize and respond to these attempts. AI, again, the theme, Meta, some college students, they purchased and used Meta's smart glasses to dox people in real time. And so these are two Harvard students. They released and created a demo of how these new Ray-Ban Meta smart glasses can use facial recognition to instantly dox a person or reveal a person's identities or phone numbers and addresses. The most unsettling part is the demo uses current, widely available technology, and public databases. And so they show how they call this eye X-ray in working with these Meta smart glasses. The ability to live stream video to Instagram, and then a computer program that monitors the stream uses AI to identify the faces. The photos are fed into public databases in real time to find the names, addresses, phone numbers, and even relatives. And then the information is fed back through a phone app. And so on the demo, you can see the two college students, they use the glasses to identify several classmates, their addresses, the names of relatives. And perhaps even more chilling, they're also shown chatting up with complete strangers in a public transit system, pretending as if they know them based on information that's gleaned from the tech. Again, they said the purpose of the tool is not for misuse and they're not going to release it. Their goal is to raise awareness that all this isn't some dystopian feature. It's all possible now with existing technology. In particular, they point out that iX-ray is unique because large language models enable it to work automatically, drawing relationships between names and photos from vast data sources. So again, just beware of that. In some good news, the EU is now making vendors liable for bugs. We've been calling this out and saying, hey, these software providers, they sell the software and then it's all on you, and they don't take any liability for the bugs. But the EU has updated its product liability law to cover software and associated risks like security flaws and planned obsolescence. And it replaces one of their older directives. And it will provide consumers with legal tools to hold companies liable in court if they sell defective products. The biggest change to the old directive is the addition of software products, and companies that sell or want to sell in the EU will have to make significant changes to how they are currently doing business if they have failed to invest in proper software development and cybersecurity practices. Again, it says that if they have flaws and those flaws lead to any damages to consumers, which includes both physical damage caused by the defective or insecure software, but also material damage, such as loss of functionality, features, loss of financial assets, and others. And it classifies the lack of software update mechanism to be a product defect and makes the vendor liable. So you can't just say there aren't any updates for this. Software vendors are also forbidden to withhold information about a software update's negative impact. The only exemption is when software update requires the consumer to manually install an update, but generally the directive sees vendors liable as long as they have control over their product after sale. Now, the new rules exclude, as you might expect, free and open source software. And the last thing we'll talk about, talking about vendor software and flaws, attackers are exploiting a CVE in SharePoint. If you are still hosting Microsoft SharePoint on-prem, you're running your own SharePoint servers, there was a vulnerability that the company released a patch for in July. It is now being actively exploited. If you haven't patched, it could lead to remote code execution, but an attacker would need to have relatively high privileges already in order to exploit it. It affects SharePoint Server Subscription Edition, SharePoint Server 2019, and SharePoint Enterprise Server 2016, and an attacker can exploit it to gain remote code execution. Of course, SharePoint is a hugely popular product in enterprises, and so we're really encouraging everyone. CISA is encouraging everyone to patch as soon as possible. Typically, your SharePoint is what companies use for intranets, which often houses valuable internal corporate information and resources. Of course, that would be valuable to targets and for attackers. So with that, again, I hope you have a great end of your October for Cybersecurity Awareness Month, and we'll catch you back soon. Take care.